Today I'm discussing the topic of serial killers. I hope everybody could hear me well. Like everything we experience in our lives, killing or murder, or being a murderer or a killer for some people may have been an intention coming into this life. Other people, they become killers because of certain traumas that they experienced that kind of led them down that path. And for some people, the trauma that they experienced had such a strong impact in their life that they end up killing again and again and again, and this is what we would consider a serial killer. From my observations, most, if not all, serial killers had a history of abandonment, rejection, neglection, abuse, or a combination of two or more of these things. Or if not, if it wasn't intentional, sometimes it was perceived that way. And what I mean by that is most of the times, and we all have childhood traumas, and what I mean is that our parents may not have intended to abuse us or to reject us or abandon us, but we perceive it that way. And if we don't consciously or mentally perceive it that way, our emotions and our feelings perceive it that way. And the energy that comes with that perception, we carry it out throughout our lives, and it stays in our bodies and it stays in our energy field until we learn to heal from it. So if a child, if a parent leave her child with a neighbor to go grocery shopping, that energy that comes with that. So that's why when your baby or your infant or a certain age of a child sees the mother or the father or the whoever is their parent leaving them to go to somewhere important, they start crying because they believe that the emotions interpret it as abandonment. And this is what most people don't understand about children and about our emotions, is that mentally we might know that we're not being abandoned, but we perceive it that way because the energy and the feelings that come with that is going to perceive that situation as such. So because this energy exists within us, because we carried it from our childhood into our adult lives, into our teenage years, we tend to attract different scenarios and different people in our lives that will trigger and or heighten the feelings of being abandoned or rejected or abused that we felt in our childhood. This causes the feelings and the energy to be triggered or heightened. So a negative state, when you're in a negative state, it would always create the need for a positive state, or to create the need for the opposite of that negative state. So feelings of abandonment will create a need for connection and significance. Like abuse creates a need for power and or domination, along with other needs. And emotional trauma from childhood, like abuse and abandonment, often result in creating narcissism within people. Now, narcissism exists in all of us. We all are narcissistic to some degree. It is created when, that's narcissism, is created from our emotional needs not being met as children. Like I mentioned before, the trauma that we experienced in our childhood. This made us feel a sense of lack and inadequacy, so we became very self-interested. This is creating narcissism now. We became very self-interested because we are constantly looking for validation for the self. Validation that we believe was limited as children, and love that we believed that was limited as children. There is narcissism, like I said, in all of us, but not all of us are narcissists per se. A narcissist is someone who has very high levels of narcissism within them. They suffer from a tremendous sense of lack. A narcissist become apathetic because of the belief that if they are in pain, then other people can and should be in pain too. This is why it's so easy for a narcissist who becomes a serial killer or a killer to take somebody's life and to hurt people physically or hurt people in general, because we become so apathetic because of the pain that we feel. You know, we want to share the pain. So they're so deeply invested in their own pain that they don't care about other people's pain, and sometimes they feel the need to share the pain. And the mentality is that if I'm in pain, you can be in pain too, and nobody cares about my pain, so why should I care about yours? You know, there's also this disconnection from other people that is derived from living in ego consciousness for such a long time. So somebody who's narcissistic, and pretty much all people have egos, and all people is egotistical to some degree. So the ego consciousness within the narcissist who becomes a killer, or just a narcissist person in general, is because of the pain that they felt throughout their lives and a childhood that brought on so much insecurity that caused the need to be good and to be perfect and to be right all the time. This causes people to compare themselves to each other. And once you start to compare yourself to each other, and this comparison, you know, becomes, it causes a disconnection from other people, and this disconnection causes even more a lack of empathy and apathy, which is apathy. Now, there are many different factors that shape each person's personality and identity that make us deal with our issues differently. This is why, even though we all have narcissism, not all of us become narcissists, and not all narcissists become serial killers. Now, what I mean by this is, you have many different children that come from the same home. One might become a serial killer. One might become a pastor. One might become somebody who is a atheist, and one might become a nurse, and one might become very spiritual and a very loving person. Why? Because there's different factors and different intentions when coming into this life that people had that helped to shape their personality, that helped to make them choose different paths and have different interests, and also deal with their issues in a different way. So this is why some people get confused, is why these people come from such nice homes. How did they become a killer? How did you become a thug? How did you become a serial killer? You know, how did you become a drug dealer? It's because people have to start understanding that there's a certain aspect of spirituality that we're disregarding, and we have intentions coming into this life. So if you had an intention to experience certain things, you're gonna choose a certain situation and a certain childhood experience and experiences that will lead you to choose certain things that will facilitate that intention. So, you know, there are different factors. I'm not going to go into these factors. I might make a video on what shape personalities and what makes each personality so different, and why people deal with their similar issues in different ways. Also, a killer usually develop personality disorders before they actually snap. This personality disorder could be developed in childhood, throughout adolescence, into their adult life. So that personality disorder is going to be shaped from their trauma, and it usually, most of the times, is narcissistic or involved in a lot of narcissism. And these personality disorders could be obsessive compulsive, they may be paranoid, they may become very dependent kind of a personality disorder. A schizoid, what they call a schizoid, and there's sociopathic, psychopathic, maybe the same thing. I said obsessive compulsive already, or paranoia. These are different kinds of things or that shape personality disorders, or different kind of personality disorders themselves. Again, people can have one or more, just like narcissism or anything else. People could have one or more of these personality disorders, but not everybody who has these personality disorders will become a killer.